Okay, so we are recording now. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the session 2. In today's session, we are going to focus on external manufacturing orchestration. So initially, session 1 last week that we did, we focused on Mint for serialized shipment. A simple use case, sending a serialized shipment transaction from a Mint SOM owner to a partner. And then after that, now in this week's session, we are going to discuss external manufacturing for Mint. So what you would see throughout the presentation is most of the configuration steps that we discussed in the previous call, they will be more or less similar. There might be some differences that we will talk about. And if you got a chance to go through the slides, which I'm going to present now, the approach that we are going to take is that we will talk about external manufacturing a little bit. What is external manufacturing orchestrations? What are the different transactions that are involved in external manufacturing orchestration? And then we will get into hands-on of the configuration of the system to enable it for external manufacturing. Once we complete the hands-on, our expectation would be that folks would be able to drop a sample file, which I wanted to attach, and I could not do that earlier, but I can do that while we are doing our hands-on. So drop a file and see that file getting processed first from XTT, B2B, and then from Mint, and then get delivered outbound. Due that course, we will also see what are the different steps in which a file or a transaction moves, when it is first dropped on the B2B connection. And then from there to Mint, what are the different steps that the transaction follows before finally getting delivered outbound. So let's see what all we can achieve in today's session. And if we are not able to achieve it all, we will schedule a follow-up session. So with that, a lot of slides in this presentation are also taken from the product summit that happened earlier this year in Mumbai. So those are product team slides. I will try to explain them as much as I can from my side, but if there are further questions that are deep enough and routed to the product team. So I hope from product team, there were folks who were supposed to be available if they can answer that, or we will let someone from product team answer that questions later. So having said that, let me start with Mint for external manufacturing. Okay, so we'll start with learning the supply chain flow. And then, so a couple of slides on that. And then we will learn external manufacturing transactions. Now, as far as transactions are concerned, Beth sends out monthly Mint updates. In those updates, there is a presentation that talks about the various transaction types. So I've taken those slides from there and put it here. For external manufacturing transactions only. So we'll quickly go through it because if you want to get into details of the transactions itself, we can refer those slides. We will spend a lot of time on the configurations that are hands-on. So I will log into my test company, and you can, if you have your own test company, you can start doing hands-on on that, or you can just follow along with me, try and understand the different steps, and then deep diving into the transaction flow, which I talked about. Prerequisites. So if you have your own test companies, so there are supposed to be an owner company and partner company. Both the owner companies and partner companies must have TL-SSO enabled, so they are enabled on Opus. The owner company and partner company needs different applications licensed and routed. So those are the applications that you see here. And then the owner company must have the master data migrated to Opus. That is how you'll see master data on Opus, so that you'll be able to create link with your partner company. The user account should have access as system administrator so that you can navigate to company administration screen and configure your system, set up the different options. And also in order to do the B2B setup. So in this course, we are going to do SFTP setup because that is the simplest one that we can do on this call. So we'll create two SFTP connections, one for the owner, one for the partner. We will configure those SFTP connections. And then finally, we will use a third-party tool like FileZilla. You can use WinSCP as well, so that we can drop a transaction file into the B2B folder and then it gets picked up by XGT for further processing. Okay, so supply chain management flow. So I need to thank TLU team for these slides. So I've taken these slides from them. So in a typical supply chain that we talk about or life sciences supply chain, there is a CMO, manufacturer, third-party logistics, distributor, and finally the end user, which is patient. Now, there are a sort of information. So there are sort of different things that flow. So the product flow is in this direction. A CMO typically manufactures a product for MH. And then the product gets transferred to a third-party logistics. When the order is received, then they can ship the products to the wholesaler distributor. And from there might be other supply chain participants as well, like secondary wholesale distributors and so on. And finally, the product gets delivered to the patients or the end user. The information flows both ways, right? So information flows in the way where the product flows and backward as well. So information flow is bidirectional. And then you have flow for the finances, which flows typically into the other direction of that as a product. Okay, so so the orchestration subgroups include product flow, financial flow, and information flow, which we saw in the previous slides. So there might be different types of teams involved in different flows of the different information. So for product flow, there would be a separate team. There would be a financial flow. So there is a separate team that is responsible for that. And then there is an information flow. So there is a separate team involved in the information flow as well. Right? So these can be categorized as a subgroups of different teams that are involved in the overall flow. So quickly getting into external manufacturing, what is the orchestration that it talks about? So a typical external manufacturing process includes MAH and a contract manufacturing organization, right? So MAH of the product will typically give the manufacturing part to the contract manufacturing organization, which will manufacture products for them. And then there is a flow of information that happens. So product flow, information flow, and the finances flow that happens with different types of transactions that you see here. So these are subset of the transactions that are used in supply external manufacturing orchestration. So forecast, plan, response, and so on. And the direction also shows you in which direction those messages are sent. So some of the messages are originated from the MAH. And then once CMOs receive those messages, they respond back with the appropriate transactions. So for example, if MAH sends a forecast plan, CMO responds with forecast plan response and so on. So the first set of transactions that we are going to focus on, which is the first part, is forecast plan response, batch creation, and inventory balance. So these are, this is the transaction overview, which I talked about, are taken from Beth's slides. So forecast plan transaction overview. what is the purpose of it? What are the supported transaction formats as of now? So we support X12, we support IDOC, we support EDIFACT. And what is the direction, from in which direction it flows? What is the frequency of these messages? So we are on forecast plan transaction, but you will see these key points for each and every transaction that are involved. So what is the frequency for forecast plan? The frequency can be weekly, monthly, or quarterly, depending on the customer. So there are some customers who are sending it weekly, and then there are some customers who are sharing the forecast plans monthly as well. And the usage note. So why a forecast plan is required? So typically forecast plan is required by MAH so that they can estimate that if the CMO has the materials or the available materials for any products that MAH wants to get manufactured in the future, right? So it is very important for MAHs to know about CMO's readiness so that they can even plan or products will be manufactured in future. And then the key data in the transaction, you see it on the right-hand side. So these are IDs, dates, and purpose code, and so on. Now, with that, you will see there are different types of transactions. So I will not put a lot of time explaining these transactions. We can have a separate session for transaction itself. So that was the first part where this information flows. Now, this part, the purchase order part, this is the actual manufacturing part when MAH wants CMO to start the manufacturing of the product. So the first part of external manufacturing orchestration focuses on CMO's readiness in anything regarding a batch. And then the second part, which is this part, is focuses on the product movement. So you create an order, purchase order, send a purchase order for CMO so that they can start manufacturing a batch or number of batches depending on the purchase order that MAH places. And then CMO acknowledges the purchase order based on the dates and the batch and the quantities and so on. And then there are typical transactions sent like inventory update or ASNs when CMO is ready to ship the batches. So again, if we get into details of each and every transaction here, you can see these are all different transactions, supported format, direction, frequency, and the key data related to those transactions. So again, I'm going over it very quickly so that we can spend more time on configuring these transactions, and then we can, if needed, get back into each and every transaction and discuss that in detail as well. Now, the final part, when the products are ready to be shipped, when products are ready by CMOs, they can ship the products or product have been shipped, then the last part that comes is the financial part. So in the financial part, CMOs will raise an invoice for the order that they manufactured, and then MAH responds. MAH users or their finance team processes the invoice, release the payment, and then they trigger another message called remittance advice, which tells that the invoice has been processed and all the payments have been released. So again, in all these transactions, there will be different formats. CMO might follow a different format based on what sort of ERP or internal system they are using. MAHs can have different formats based on what sort of ERP they are using and or any other internal system. Okay. So I know I went over it very quickly because in the last session, we were not able to spend a lot of time on the configuration part itself. But let me get into the configuration part. But before that, I'll take a pause. And if anyone has any questions till now, please feel free to ask that. And I'll that time. Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so let me get into the configuration part. But before we get into the configuration part, we'll start with some of the basics. So the basics would be when we want to configure our system to enable the external manufacturing orchestration, which involves a certain set of transactions, right? So what are the supply chain rules that are involved, and what are those entities which are acting as supplier or customers, right? So the first thing is defining these supply chain rules. So who is going to act as a customer? Customer is someone who creates an order, who wants some sort of order to be created and to be fulfilled, and supplier is who is going to fulfill those orders for the customers. Define the application ownership. So between supplier and customer, who is going to act as Mint owner, or who acts as a partner. Then when you have the external manufacturing orchestration that you want to implement, you might not be looking to implement, or companies might not be looking to implement all of the transactions from the external manufacturing orchestrations. So what are the different transactions that are involved in this part, what we are trying to configure? For example, PO, POAC invoices, and so on. Then we clearly need to define the file formats in which both the parties want to exchange the data, right? So file format for both the parties can be same or different depending on the internal systems or ERPs that they use. Then also one of the key point would be what is the preferred B2B method that they want to use, whether they want to use SFTP, AS2, email exchange, or link actions, right? And also there is an option to use the Mint user interface itself, wherein you can log into, if you do not have any internal system to enable these transactions, then customers can log into the user interface of Mint and initiate those transactions from there itself. Okay, so before we start implementing or before we start configuring the system, it is very important for us to define or understand these things clearly, right? Because based on these things, we'll be setting up, when we go and set up our B2B connection, for example, let's say customers say we want to use SFTP for that matter. So our ERPs will send data over SFTP to TraceLink. Then we also need to understand what is going to be the format of the transaction that is coming. So basics, so this is the same diagram that we talked about in our previous session as well, Mint for serialized shipment. So on the top, if you look at the diagram, so company one ERP will send data into Opus on their own XTT, which is an enterprise application, extensible TraceLink transfer application. Now, the method of sending the data would be defined in XTT, that you can create a B2B connection in XTT that can be a SFTP connection, AS2 connection, and so on. So the B2B or the XTT itself can be called as the Opus gateway through which different companies or their internal system communicate with Opus. Now, the XTT application or B2B, the larger application system application, these are the primary interface, and the business application that you see here in the middle is MPC or Mint. But when we talk about other business applications also, for example, Poet and other business application, then also our interface from the external world is going to be the B2B application itself, where you will create the B2B connections. And once the data is sent from the ERP to XTT using a B2B connection, then B2B does certain steps that we will talk about once we complete our configuration and we are ready to drop a file. And then the transaction is passed to MPC, which then applies business logic to that transaction, and then it gets delivered outbound to the receiver's XTT. And then from receiver's XTT, the transaction gets delivered to the receiver's internal system or their ERP, right? Now, for this session, for hands-on, what we are going to do is our Mint owner is going to act as a customer. So what that means is the Mint owner is going to issue a purchase order to a partner, and partner will act as a supplier. So partner will respond back with PO acknowledgement message. And we will try to follow different formats. So we will send an X12 from the owner side, PO in X12 format from owner side, which gets delivered into the IDOC format on the receiver side. So it would mimic the scenario where company one's ERP uses X12 format to exchange the data, and company two's ERP uses the IDOC format. Okay. And then vice versa. When we send PO acknowledgement back from company two, it will be in IDOC format, and on company one ERP side, it will be converted to X12 format and get delivered. Okay. So now, before we log into the system and start some actual hands-on, so far, does anyone have any questions? And I can look into the chat as well. Okay. Okay. So one thing that would be different from the last session, if you can see here, is in the last session when we had Mint for serialized shipment, on the sender side, the ERP was replaced with the serialized operations manager. So serialized operations manager was the source of the data. And then the information, then we did not have a B2B connection created because data on Opus comes from the TTS using the jump boxes, right? So TTS jump box sends data to Opus jump box, and that is how it gets available on Opus side. And then Mint processes it. And on the right-hand side, then the diagram remains the same because partner would pick up the file on the B2B connection that they have created on their XTT, right? So that's the major difference here, that when SOM is not the data source in this scenario is the company one's or sender's ERP, right? So the way ERP can send the data or communicate this information in form of using the B2B connection that they have created on their XTT. Okay. So now starts with hands-on. So hands-on one is first, if you have all the prerequisites completed, then the first step would be to add the master data for the owner and partner. So by this time, what you might have is, if your company is already created, you might have master data created for owner company and location. You also might have created master data for partner. If you create the master data on TTS, it gets synchronized to Opus automatically. And if you create master data on Opus side, it gets synchronized to TTS. So synchronization happens the both way. But if you have a new company altogether or new partner altogether, so the very first step would be to add the master data into the owner's master data, because in this case, owner has master data services licensed on the Opus. Now, in order to do that, there are some steps. So you will find these steps on the wiki page itself. So first thing is, as a system administrator, you will log into your company. And what I'll do is I will also log into my test company and share my screen. Just give me a minute. Okay, so if you log into your test company and in the last session, we learned about the Opus Ensemble. So if you go to this main menu option, if the user that is logged into the company has access to the different applications. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen.
You are on Zoom.
Okay. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay, now it works. Okay, thank you. Okay. If your user has access to these different applications, you should see it under the main menu. If you do not see your user having access to master data application, what you'll do is, as a system administrator, you need to go to the administration option. And from administration, you will go to the users. And it will take some time. And then networks option is for all the multi-enterprise applications. So you'll go to the apps option because master data is an enterprise application. The application owner would be master data of your company, and you'll click on apply. So once you click on apply, you can see all the users which have access to the master data application. Right now, if your user does not have access to master data application, you can click on assign user to network. So there are these two options to add either an internal user or an external user. So the internal users are the one which are part of this company, right? So a single user can be part of only one company as an internal user. If you want your user to be part of multiple companies, like my email ID needs to have access of multiple companies, you can add it as external users, right? So if you are using an internal user, you'll select this option, you'll select the list of users. So this list would be the internal user list for your company. You'll select one of the users. Team option is not applicable to enterprise applications. So you'll select the roles. So as of now, there are two roles that are applicable for master data. So you can provide the full access role, and you can also provide the master data expanded UI access role to your user, right? And you can click on assign. So you can do this for your internal user, or if you want to add yourself as an external user, you can provide the email ID. I can provide my own email ID, so my own SSO. Somehow the teams are required at this point of time if you provide external user, the behavior which needs to be changed, but you will select the team as well, which will be your company, and then you can provide the same rules. So the difference between internal user and external user would be, if you have been assigned as internal user, you'll be able to log into your own company. But if your user is added as an external user, what you will be able to see is, once you log into your SSO, you will be able to see the list of companies here in the drop down. So these are the list of companies where my user has access. So I can just quickly navigate to these companies. So all the roles information is available on the wiki page. I think link for the wiki page is available in this presentation, as well as you all should have a link to the wiki page, so you can find all these roles which needs to be assigned for master data manager. One important thing is, once you log into any company, what system does is it generates a token based on all the access that you have at the time of logging in, right? So when I logged in, my user did not have access to master data manager of my services, right? So my token which got generated did not have access for master data manager. So once you assign the role, you might not see the application appearing here directly. So what you'll have to do is log out from your company and log in again, so that a new token would be created, which would have access to this application as well. Okay, so I'll just keep on going. If you want me to pause, yeah.
One question in the chat. What is the difference between expanded access and standard access?
So the difference is supposed to be that expanded access users can edit and standard access users would only be able to view the master data. Now these roles are being redefined when master data moves to Gen 2. So still, as of today, if you see the master data application and the admin application itself is on Gen 1, right? So now these roles would change. There will be a different name, but for now, the difference between standard and expanded role is standard is view only and expanded is edit access. Okay. So with that, if your master data is migrated on the Opus correctly with the prerequisite steps, what you'll be able to do is once you navigate to master data, you'll be able to see these options, my company, partner, and products. Within my company, you would be able to see the company information and the identifiers itself. So there will be different identifiers, and then you'll be able to see your company locations as well. Okay. Similarly, you will have the partner master data. So you'll have partner companies. So you can search for a partner company here. And then the locations as well, the partner company location. So you can provide the partner company name or location ID tab options. You can provide and filter based on the ID types and values or even names or the status of the master data record. So this would be the first step that you'll have to ensure that the partner master data is created and added. So one of the things that I would like to highlight here is when you add your partner master data to the system, there will be some set of identifiers that you will add for your partner, right? Now, is there a question?
Yeah, look, Sagar here. So we are not getting the details like the My Company. When we click on the My Company, we are getting like no data. Why is it so?
So that means the master data for your company has not been migrated to Opus yet.
Okay. And for that, we need to raise an input or something like that?
Yes.
Or maybe, sorry to interrupt, Alok, or maybe the TTS instance itself did not have the master data published. That scenario also happens sometimes.
And then finally, it cannot get migrated to Opus, right? So
Yeah.
that's a good point, Lakshmi. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we will need to do in that case is first go to our TTS company, publish the master data from TTS company, and then create an ATS ticket. And of course, you will create your master data for your company there, and then create ATS ticket to migrate the master data on Opus. So that would be one-time activity only. Once that migration takes place, your data will start synchronizing back and forth. Okay. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about when you add the partner master data into your company, so there might be an option where you might have a global identifier available for your partner company, like GLNs, DUNS, and so on. Now, these global identifiers could be added on the network as well, right? So a partner company can be identified on the network using these global identifiers, right? Now, there might be other scenarios as well where a partner company does not have a global identifier, right? So these might be the companies who do not have GLNs, DUNS, or so on available as of now. Then you will not have the identifier available on the network, right? So system will not be able to find out which instance it wants to talk to, right? Which is the partner instance, how it should find that partner instance on the network. So in that case, we have one slide in our presentation as well, which talks about network node IDs, but we will get into that details later. In that case, what you will do is, if you log into your company on TTS, it can be owner company or it can be partner company. On TTS, the company will have the master data published, right? So on any company, when you navigate to on TTS, when you navigate to company master data, you will find company master data record. If you go click on that, you will find a TraceLink ID, right? Now, what you can do is, if there is no global identifier available, you can come here and you can add an identifier here called as TraceLink ID and put the value in here. So for most of the company, for company record, your TraceLink ID would be matching with the company ID, but you should ensure that. And you can have company ID as one identifier type and same value. And you can add one more identifier type called as TraceLink ID and put the same value. So I can do this as well for my test company and click on add. Now what this does is, now your record is associated with an entity on the network, which is, of course, if you have followed Caitlin's presentation, it's called your digital twin, right? So this is your digital twin, and that is how a company on the, you will be able to find the company on the network using the TraceLink IDs. Now, having TraceLink IDs in the master data record is optional as long as you have a global identifier available for the partner company. But if there are no global identifiers available, then having TraceLink ID becomes the required step. Okay. Any questions on that? So is everyone able to add the master data on the Opus, or do you still have some issues adding master data? And do you understand this concept of TraceLink ID? When you log into your TraceLink system on partner side, go to company master data, you will find a TraceLink ID just under the company name.
Hey, Alok, I have a question. It's Brijesh. To enable Master Data app, what role was it that you recommended to apply from administration?
So the role would be full access and expanded UI access.
Okay, not Master Data administrator, right?
Master data administrator is not required. We created multiple roles and then we realized that some of those roles are not required.
Okay, full access and expanded UI access, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Alok,
Okay, so
are we going to remove this the roles that are not required? Because there are many roles and can create confusion. So if they are not being to be used, are they going to be removed from the UI?
in Gen 2, we are going to come up with a new set of rules. And with every rules, there would be a description of in which cases the rules would be required. So there will be a different rules altogether in Gen 2. I mean, the naming would be different. So we'll talk about that when Master Data Gen 2 is released, which is, I think, this month. Or maybe, if I'm not right, next month, June. But I'm pretty sure it's in validation in May.
Oh, okay, noted. Thanks.
Okay, so if we all have now access to master data, let me go back quickly and see what is our next step in our hands-on training, which should be the role assignment. Okay, so assigning roles. Oh, no, before that, we have to create a process network. Yeah. So in order to create a process network, we will navigate to administration networks. But now let's follow along. So what we will do is, once we get into the network, we will select application, and multi-enterprise information network tower application should be available. If the owner company is licensed to MPC application, we'll click on apply. And now system is supposed to show me all the process networks that were created already. And I don't know why it is not showing that, but in your companies, you should be able to see that. Can you guys see the process networks in your company, or is this behavior same for everyone? Can anyone see that in your company? Okay. Can anyone confirm all that you are able to see the process networks in your company? If you go to networks, select the application and then click on apply. Anyone?
Yeah, I am able to see it
Okay.
on Monroe Company.
Okay, then we are safe. Thank you, Piyush. Oops, just give me a second. I just changed my VPN, so maybe that's the problem, but I don't know for sure. Let's. Oh, now I don't have the network. Okay, so let me just see if I have another company where I can go and this is available there. And this is happening because I just changed my my VPN in between. So let me just go to a new company and see if I can see master data. I just hope it is not the problem with the environment itself. Okay. Okay, yeah. So yeah. So what we should ensure that we will see, you might see list of process networks here, but there are a couple of things to watch out for. My company's role, owner, these are the process network for which your company is owner, right? Your company has created these process networks, and then other partners will collaborate on this process network. Okay. Now, if you already have a process network created in your company, if you can see at least one process network where your company is owner, then you should not create a new process network for now. Okay. And if you have a company where there is no process network created, or there are process network, but your company's role is partner, then you can go ahead and click on this plus icon called Add Network. Select the application, provide a process network name. So you can keep any name, but for the sake of this course, you can call it Mint for Direct Supply or just Direct Supply like I have created, or external manufacturing. You can provide a description that is optional. The applied solution always would be the standard solution when you are creating the process network. The other option is to enable a company solution, but we'll talk about that later. For all the process networks that we will be creating now, our solution by default will be the standard solution. So we'll keep this option as it is, and then we will click on Add. Please only click on Add if you do not have a process network already in your company where your company's role is owner of the process network. Okay. Now, again, there is a page that talks about best practices of creating process networks. So I must have included the link in the slides. If not, I'll include that link again. And we can revisit that link later when we talk about the best practices. But that is how you will create the process network in your system. So now let me take a pause and see if everyone is able to either see at least a process network where your company's role is owner, or you are able to create a new process network. Can we get some confirmations on the chat itself so that we can move to the next step? Okay, good. Okay, great. Now, when the process network is created, now you have created a shared workspace where owners and partners can collaborate, right? Now, before we start adding the partners or start linking the partners with this process network, so either we can add roles for our admin user for different applications, we can complete that, and then we can go ahead and create links. Remember, we have already created master data for partners. So when we go and create links, those master data should be available. So what I'll try to do is with the master data, we should have done that earlier. With the master data itself, we can add rules for other supporting applications as well. So if you go to the main menu and you do not see XTT application here, like I don't see the XTT application here, what it means is my user does not have access to XTT application. So I cannot create a B2B connection, which then I can use later. So first what I'll do is, as a system administrator, I will navigate to users. I'll click on app and I will select the application XTT AWS. Click on apply. And there are no users which have access to XTT AWS. So I will select on add user. Now I am going to add external user, which is my email ID, TraceLink email ID. And I'll assign a role for XTT called as application administrator. Again, these roles for which application, what roles to assign, that information is available on the configuration wiki page. So you can readily find this information from the configuration wiki page itself. And I'll click on assign. Now my user will be added to the XTT application. So we'll do that. And as I said, it will not appear immediately here, and we'll have to log out and log in, or probably switch to another company and come back to this company so that the token can get refreshed, and I will be able to see the XTT AWS application.
Look, is this a partner writing or is it an owner?
So as of now, we are working on owner step.
Okay.
Right? We will have to repeat these steps in partner instance as well, because partners would also require XTT AWS. What partners will not do is partners will not create a process network because they will not have the Mint application licensed. So they will not create a process network. Owners will create a process network, link partners to that process network so that the workspace is shared. And then these are the supporting application, the other application for which we need to provide roles to the users, right? So when we want to create the B2B connection, we'll need to have access to XTT AWS application.
Similar
Okay, so
to
we
step.
are still. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, nothing. Thank you.
So we are still in the context of an owner company, right? So I'll let you know when we move to the partner company. Okay, and then there is another application for which we want to provide the rule. This might not be needed now with the new introduction of system integration principle, but before we confirm, let's keep on adding rules for this application as well, which is Customer Transform Catalog Manager, or CTCM. Again, we'll select the application, we'll click on assign users to network. Again, I'm going to assign rules to myself, my async@tracelink.com user. I can select a team which should not be required for enterprise application, and I'll select transform member expanded access role and click on assign. Okay, now, so So far, I've assigned the access to the user for two enterprise applications, XTT AWS and CTCM. So our user has not been assigned roles for the process network that we have created. So we'll need to assign roles for the process network as well. So what I'll do is I'll go to the networks tab, user network tab, and I'll select the process network from here. So the process network should appear here in this list, and you will select the correct process network, click on apply. And then there are two options. So one is if a user is already added to the process network, it has been given some roles, you can then edit these roles from here. So you can go to the kebab icon, select the user, go to the kebab icon, click on manage roles, and edit the existing roles for the user. Or if the user is not added to the network already, you can click on this plus icon. Again, the option are internal and external user. So you can select the appropriate user. I'll select the user from here. Team for the owner. Again, it would be a company level team, and then we will have the roles that are needed to be assigned. Now, the roles are the important thing. You will find these roles, which roles you need to assign for which choreography on the wiki page itself. But let's talk about these roles for now so that we can assign that in this courses. For the owner, we'll assign all transaction owner admin role. So you can see that screen, which is similar to Info Exchange screen on TTS side, where you can see the transaction status, right? Now, when you send a transaction, you just don't want to see the transaction status. You also want to see the transaction details. So if you go back to TTS, on the Info Exchange screen, you can see a SOM sales shipment message coming in, processing, if it's processed successfully, if it has failed, and so on. But then you need to have access to SOM application so that you can go there, select inbound and outbound delivery, whichever is applicable, and you can view the details of that delivery as well, right? So in case of external manufacturing orchestration, you will assign two more roles, which would be expanded and standard roles for edit and view only purposes. So the roles that you would select, now remember, this is for the owner user, right? So the choreography is manufacturing. So we'll first select manufacturing. Owner's role or our company's role is customer. That is what we decided. Our company for this exercise is going to act as a customer, and this company is Mint owner. So you don't have a word partner added to the role. So the role is going to be manufacturing customer. Manufacturing is the choreography, external manufacturing. Customer is my role in the supply chain, and the role is expanded. And then there is one more role, which would be manufacturing customer. Now, not the partner standard or partner expanded, because my company is an owner. So I will have manufacturing customer standard, and I will click on assign. Okay. So again, these roles are available in detail if you go to the wiki page, which exact roles you have to assign. But for this session, what roles we are going to assign is, it's like changes have not taken place. So the roles that we will assign is serialization. The all transaction owner admin role. Okay. And you would select manufacturing customer expanded, manufacturing customer standard, right? So these are the roles that a Mint owner acting as a customer for external manufacturing orchestrations would need. Okay. So now let me take a pause here and see if you are able to assign these roles. And you can just confirm on the chat.
Alok, quick question.
Yeah.
Because you have one of the role is called standard and the other one is expanded. So I understood that expanded allows you to edit data, but isn't standard embedded into what expanded offers? I mean,
Sort of.
is there a hierarchy? Or
There is a difference. So if you think about our slide when we started, there are some transactions that a customer would send to the supplier, and then there are transactions that the customer would receive from the suppliers, right?
Yeah.
Now, the transactions that customer would initiate, they should be able to edit those transactions and they should be able to create those transactions, right? So
okay.
if only expanded role is added to your user, you would be, when you go to the Mint process network and you go to the left-hand side menu, you will only see those options where you are allowed to make the edit changes, right? You will not see the transactions that your company receives, which are view only for the users. Right?
Okay, clear.
Now, yeah, we encourage to add both the roles so that you can see all the external manufacturing transactions available when you go to the process network and click on the left-hand side menu.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. So, and you can pause me if you have any other questions or you are not able to complete the steps, but I'll just simply go ahead for now if there are no questions from anyone else. Okay, so we have created a master data, partner master data. We created a process network. We assigned role to the users. Now the important step is to create the link with the partner in context to the process network that has been created, right? So what we'll do is we will navigate to this option called administration links. Now, again, first we will select the process network, click on apply. And doing that, you will be able to see all the links that have been created with respect to this process network or in context to this process network. So my direct supply process network owner is my company. I have a link created to the partner company, and my company's role is owner, and linked entity type is partner company or partner location, depending on what we are going to link, right? So this is the link that I have already created for my company. So now if we want to create a new link with a new partner, so first thing is we'll have to click on add links. Select the application. And now the next step would be to select the process network, right? Because we are going to add a partner in context to a process network, right? So defining the process network is very important. Depending on how your company is set up as of now, you might see one process network or more than one process network. You would select one of the process network where you want to add this new partner. So we'll select the process network. Then this entity dropdown shows you all the records that are available in the master data. So these records will include your company locations as well as partner company and partner company locations. Okay, so a link can be created with your internal location or with your company location as well. So you will see these records populating here, and these records will populate based on the master data that you have set up. So for any entity that I want to select, system will show us all the different identifiers that have been created. You can choose any of the identifiers to create a link. Now, if you include some send notification to email IDs here, which is totally optional, by the way, but if you include these email IDs here, those users will receive a notification that a link has been created, right? But the link would not require any validation or any approval from the partner users, right? So an owner user can add the master data and create a link with any entity that they need to. And then we'll click on next. Now the next step is that now we are going to create a link, but any partner who is linked to that process network or my process network, owner's process networks, what roles they can be provided on that process network. So we will select all transaction partner admin roles so that they can see the info exchange like screen where they can see the transaction status, any of the transaction status that is sent to them. Now, for the other roles, what we will do is we'll follow the same pattern that we followed earlier. So the choreography is external manufacturing. Since my company is acting as a customer, the partner company would act as a supplier. So I'll go to manufacturing supplier, and also the supplier is a partner. So I will select manufacturing supplier partner expanded, manufacturing supplier partner standard, right? These two roles for the partners. Now, how did I decide these roles is I knew what is the role of my entity or my instance in the supply chain. I'm acting as a customer. So the partner is acting as a supplier, right? They are not the mint owner. We know the choreography type, how we are going to connect with them. We know the role of the partner in the supply chain. And then this partner expanded or partner standard tells the difference whether they are owners or whether they are partners, right? So we will assign these roles. So what happens with these roles is purchase order which an owner sends would appear on the manufacturing supplier partner role. When you have these roles, you will be able to, partners will be able to see the purchase order sent by the customers and they can respond with purchase order acknowledgement. So we'll select these roles, all transactions, partner admin for partner, and then manufacturing supplier partner expanded, manufacturing supplier partner standard. And when we assigned the roles for owner, we assigned the roles for process network. Now we are assigning the roles to a link, right? A link that has been created between an owner and a partner. Okay. Yeah. So we'll select these roles and click on link. So once you click on link, then what happens is system will take some time and depending on if the link was failed, it would appear here with the reason of failure, or after some time, system should show you a link appearing here. So one of the reasons, the major reasons because of which the link can fail is the global, the identifier that you have chosen is not available on the network. In that case, you can either add the global identifier on the network or you can put a TLID for the partner into the partner master data. Identifier type would be tracelink ID and identifier value would be the tracelink ID value. So that's one of the major reasons because of which your link would fail. Otherwise, the link should process without any issues.
Alok, I have a question here.
Okay. Yeah.
I can actually see I'm linked, so I've also successfully done it, but at the same time, it failed.
Yes. And I was thinking Lakshmi would say that, but yeah. So yeah, that also we have observed a couple of times, Luca, that so first when you try to create a link, by default it moves to the failed status, right? Because the link has not been created successfully. So it moves to failed status. But what should happen actually once the link is successful from failed page, it should disappear and it should only appear on the actual link page, the successful page. But so far, for some reason, it does not move from the failed status as well. So as long as you can see a link appearing here on this tab, which is multi-network tab, you should be fine. That's something for admin to.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Global identifier error, as we have seen, even partner GLN is also added on the network. So if the partner GLN or partner identifier is added on the network, we should not probably have this issue. It might be one odd scenario, and we can take a look up for that after the call itself. Just feel free to reach out to me and we can take a look. But as long as the identifier is either available on the network, or you could add the TraceLink ID for that partner in your master data, your link should work fine. I mean, there might be exceptions, and that we can figure out based on case-to-case basis. Okay. Now, if the link has been created, so let's see what we have been able to achieve so far. We've been able to first assign roles to our user, and I've still not logged out and logged in, so I don't see XTT application here and CTCM. But what we did is we assigned roles to our user for XTT and CTCM application, MPC application as well. That was already there. Then we created a process network for Mint. We created process network and we assigned roles to owner user for our process network, so that when owner user logs in, they navigate to the process network. They're able to see the process network and the other options that are available. So we assigned roles to owner user as well. Then we created a link with the partner. We assigned roles to the partner link. And now partner users can use any of the roles available on their link. Okay. Now, so this part is set up, okay, from the owner side. Now there are a couple of things that we will have to do in order to enable our system to process any document that is sent to this system from customer's ERP or their internal system, right? So before we can configure those steps, what we will have to do is we'll have to create a B2B connection, right? So that using that B2B connections, owner's internal system or owner's ERP can send a transaction to owner's Mint. Okay. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll just switch back and forth to my instance and see. Or I can just continue here. Seems like I did not give it enough time. Okay, but anyways, if you have roles assigned for XTT application, you should be able to see when you click on the main menu, you should be able to see extensible transfer, TraceLink transfer AWS application here. And if you navigate to that application, you will find these two options called search B2B messages, which is again, you can relate to this screen as being similar to the info exchange screen. You send a transaction in and you check the status of that transaction. And you will also see an option called search B2B connection. Okay. Now this is the page where you would see all the existing connections that are created for your company, and you can create new connections as well, right? So if you go to main menu and you can find extensible trace link transfer AWS, if you don't find it in your main menu item, that would mean that either the user does not have application administrator role available for XTT application, or if you assign the role, you forgot to log out and log in so that the changes did not take place. So you can do that. But if you have assigned the roles and you have refreshed your session, you have logged out and logged in, you should be able to see XTT application and this option called Search B2B Connections. So now when you have the Search B2B option available here, you can go ahead and click on Add B2B Connection. So you'll see multiple options here. If you wonder that one of the B2B connection that we talked about is also link action, but that option we do not see it here. So that is a separate application altogether. So like you have XTT AWS, there is a separate application called XTT link action, and we can have that discussion later in some other sessions. But for now, we are going to create SFTP connections for our company. Okay, so we can go ahead and click on the SFTP option and click on next. Now to create SFTP connection, now if we go back to our TTS world, in order to create a B2B SFTP connection for a company, we needed to create a CloudOps ticket, and CloudOps team needs to go back and they used to create the SFTP connections in VLTrader, and they used to make this username and password available on LastPass. We used to pick up the username and password from there and then start using it, right? Now on Opus with the XTT application, we can create our own B2B connections, right? So when we create the B2B connection, we have this flexibility to provide a username. Now, again, if you follow the wiki page, there is a convention that is followed. Again, it's not limited to, but we prefer to follow that. Ideally, we create the B2B connection naming network name -environment and then the SFTP account. Again, SFTP is optional nowadays, so we probably need to update our instructions. But you can use these names. So your company's network name -val -SFTP. You can keep any name that you want, but you will see in future it just creates complexities. One of the other things probably we should start doing is, in place of SFTP, we should start calling it by choreography type. But wait for that till we update the instructions on the wiki page. So you can select the username by yourself, environment name, and either the choreography type or the you can add SFTP. Anything is allowed. Now, one difference with TTS that we have on Opus is the SFTP authentication on TTS is username and password based authentication, right? So you have a username and you have a password to log into your SFTP connection. On Opus, the difference is that the authentication is key-based authentication. So the key-based authentication has a concept of public and private keys. So we would generate public and private key combination. So the keys are generated in a combination. The public keys would be provided here when we create the B2B connection, right? And then we will add the B2B connection here. The private keys are kept by the administrator so that they can use that private key and a passphrase, which is a password for the private key, to log into the SFTP account later. Okay, so public key goes here. So I'll talk about generating public keys, but before that, there is one more important option here as well called choreography type. So there are 3 choreography types available. The last 2, if you see, they are very standard choreography type, which is the document type, X12 and Edifact. So if our document format is X12 or Edifact, we can select choreography like that. For any other transaction type, it can be IDOC, it can be CSV, it can be XML, it can be JSON, it can be when partners send serialized shipment, it can be even EPCIS files. So for all the other transaction format, our choreography type is going to be other. And we will learn also about it when we go into the details. How does it matter? How does XTT identifies the transaction type based on the choreography types, right? So if you are creating it on the owner side, if you are following along with this exercise only for owners, we decided that we will send a purchase order in X12 format. So you can select choreography type as X12. If you already have a B2B connection, you can create a new connection. That is not a problem. You can create new connections, add new connections, depending on your need. You can either use it or ignore it. Right. So on the owner side, since we decided that the PO transaction that owner will send will be in X12 format. So we'll select the choreography type and X12. And now it is our time to generate the public and private key combination, right? So what we will do is, again, if you've gone through the slides, we will use a third-party tool called Partigen to generate public and private keys. So a couple of things to note: that type of key to generate would be RSA. We change number of bits in a generated key. Again, that should not matter, but as a standard practice, we keep it 4096. Even if it is 2048, it should not matter. And once you have the Partigen installed, these settings enable, you can simply click on generate to generate a public and private key pair. You can just keep moving your cursor here so that it adds some randomness to the keys that are generated. Now, when the keys are generated, this is the public key that is generated here. So you can simply copy this public key from here and paste it here. Okay. So simply copy and paste the public key from Partigen into the SSH key option, right? Just make sure you copy the whole thing, because XTT does validate this format. So if something is wrong, if you have not copied the whole public key, then XTT might not allow you to save the SFTP connection. So if you have copied the whole thing, you can click on add. And once you click on add, the connection would be added. Now we need to also generate the private keys so that we can access the SFTP connection using some third-party tool, or when partners ERP send the transaction to the SFTP folder, they can authenticate. So before we can save the private key, we can also provide a passphrase. So that there is an option to create a passphrase. You can generate any random password for the private key and then confirm the password here again. And once that is generated, you have created the password, you can click on save. Okay, so it is smart enough to know that my passwords did not match. Okay.
Alok, you are still sharing your screen on the Opus view. Do you want to share something else?
For that, Luca, I thought I'm sharing my whole screen. I was sharing it. Thanks for that, Luca. So I think I'll have to repeat that. Okay. So this is the Partigen screen. I hope you can see it now. Can you guys see my key generator? Okay. So what I did is I opened the key generator. I typed type of keys to generate. Selected the option RSA, which is by default. By default, number of bits in a generated key would be 2048, but we change it to 4096 to make it more secure. And then we click on this option called generate. So when we click on generate, system generates a public and private. So it will generate a public key here. So what I'll do is from this box, I will copy the public key and paste it in this section here. This is the section where my public key goes. And then we are good to add the B2B connection. As far as private key is concerned, we will create a passphrase for private key. So we will provide a random password. We just need to make sure that the password that we provided they match with the confirmed password. And then we will click on save private key. So if you do that, you can then save the private key. It will be in PPK format. And you should remember the passphrase for your private key. If you forget the passphrase for your private key, then that public and private key combination cannot be used. Okay, so be very careful to remember your passphrase for the private key and save the private key at a place where you can access them later. So if you are able to create this connection here, so let me quickly talk about what happens if you forget your passphrase for private key, or somehow you forget the private key itself where you have saved it. So what you can do is you can, if you, for some reason you have to add a new set of public and private key, you can go to the existing B2B connection and remove the existing. So in some of the testing, you don't even need to remove the public key, but as a good practice so that you don't get confused, just remove the existing public key that is available here. And then you can click on add and you can add a new public key. So you'll have to do the whole process again. You will generate a public and private key combination. So you can add a new public key here and use that. So you don't need to create a new P2B connection. If for some reason you do not have the passphrase or the private key available, you can just generate the new public and private keys and add that to your existing B2B connections.
Alok, I have a question. So, what should be the choreography type?
Right. So choreography type depends on the transaction format that someone is trying to send or receive, right?
Okay.
Now, if the transaction type that we are trying to send is standard X12 or standard EDI, the choreography type would be just that, X12 or EDI, EDIFACT, right? Those are the standard formats.
Mm-hmm.
If the format is anything else apart from X12 or EDIFACT, any other format, then the choreography type would be other.
Okay. Got
Okay.
it.
The reason for that is, and as I said, that we will discuss it on the other slides, that for any inbound document that you send to XTT or this B2B connection, if the format is standard like X12 or EDIFACT, XTT can look into the file and find out the correct transaction type, whether the document sent was purchase order or ASN or invoice and so on, right? Because it is a standard format, right?
Yes.
But for any other format which is not standard, XTT has no way of knowing what is the transaction type, right? So that's why we define a different choreography type other, and that is why the next part, when we log into our SFTP connection, we will create folders as well for specific transaction types. Okay. So in this example, in this session, what we were planning to do is we were planning to drop a purchase order in X12 format. That is why we created a B2B connection with choreography type as X12, because on this B2B connection, we will put a PO in X12 format. Okay. Okay, now let me share FileZilla first. Now, depending on what you want to use, FileZilla or WinSCP, again, this is a third-party application which we can use to access our SFTP connection and talk to our SFTP connection. So we can send the files inbound or receive the files outbound and so on, right? Now, if can you guys see my FileZilla screen on the Zoom?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So if you already have FileZilla installed, if not, again, there is a wiki page, and I think all those wiki pages link are in the slides already. So if you go there, you can download the FileZilla, and then you can go to the site manager, right, on this option. And you can add a new site. So maybe there will not be anything available for you if this is your first time using FileZilla. You could click on new site. Okay. When you click on new site, as a general practice, what I do is I name these sites based on the name of my SFTP connection. So you can see there are many. That is how I know in which B2B connection I should switch, right? So click on new site, and then you can rename it. You can name it to match with your SFTP username. Okay, because that would be easier for you to find out the correct B2B connection. Then what you will do is you'll go to protocol and select the SSH file transfer protocol SFTP. Right, so there will be multiple options. I see SFTP, FTP and SFTP both. You would select SFTP. Okay. Now you would need to provide the host name. Okay. So I can't switch. Let me go to this page. I've been talking about this page, but it's probably the time to show you guys the page that I'm talking about. And you can also Wolfgang it. You can just on the Wolfgang type SFTP on Opus, and it should take you to the page here. Okay. And it will have everything that we discussed so far, right? How do we create SFTP connections? How do we generate the public and private keys and so on? So there would be some host name. Now, I believe most of us are working on Valvir. So we type this host name, we'll copy the host name from here, provide the host name here. Logon type would be, so initially it used to be normal, but now we will do key file. Okay. So our logon type would be key file authentication. And then there will be our username. So this is the SFTP username that we have created, right? So for example, I created network name -val -SFTP. So this would be my username. And then in the key file, I will browse and add my key file here. Okay. So as I said, the instructions are available stepwise on the wiki page. So you can follow that wiki page if you want to download it and access FileZilla later. And once you do all of that, once you have given the path for your private key, once you have the SFTP username created and the correct host entered, you can leave the port blank. You'll click on connect. If all those details are correct, then system will ask you to provide a passphrase for your private key. I hope these are correct. No, this will not be correct. Yes, because my username is not correct. Okay. So system could not find that username anywhere. But if for my other connections, so if I go to the other connection, it will ask me for my passphrase for the key file. And when I provide passphrase for the key file, it will open the SFTP folder layout. Okay. So once you see the layout, in the layout, you will see 4 folders: accepted, inbox, outbox, and rejected. So as the name suggests, anything that is coming inbound to the system would need to be placed into the inbox folder. Right? When the file is placed in the inbox folder, this concept is very similar to what we have on the TTS side, right? On the TTS side also, we have similar file structure, inbox and outbox. I forgot about accepted and rejected. I think we have it there as well. But yes, so inbox, any file that you are going to send inbound, you will drop it in inbox folder. And any file that is coming outbound will go to the outbox folder, and you can go there and download those files. Now, depending on the choreography type that we have selected, we will have to create subfolders within inbox, right? Now, if my SFTP connection is of choreography type other, what it means is XTT does not know what is the transaction type of the incoming document, because it does not know how to read 10 different types of CSV files or XML files or JSON files, because those can be the custom files or applicable to one customer only, how they refer to some transaction. So XTT has no way of knowing the transaction type. But if it is X12, then of course because X12 is a standard format or Edifact is a standard format, XTT knows how to read the transaction type from the X12 file itself, right? So two things. If we have created, if you are following along, if you have created a B2B connection with choreography type X12, under inbox, you will create a directory. You will click on inbox, you will create a directory, and you will call it XTT_X12. Okay, so you can right click on inbox and you can click on create directory. Option should be available. It is disabled for me, but you can create directory and you can add the name XTT_X12. Now, all the X12 transaction, irrespective of the transaction type, would go to the same folder, right? So in the same folder, you can drop purchase order, you can drop ASNs, you can drop invoice, you can drop purchase order acknowledgement, and so on. Any type of transactions will go into the same folder, which is called XTT_X12. Because if you drop the transaction in this folder itself, XTT would know how to read the file and find out the transaction type. Okay. If the B2B connection was created as choreography type other, then within the inbox folder, we will have to create the directories, and the directory names would be transaction wise. So for ASNs, it would be MPC_advanced_ship_notice, and so on. So these will be based on the transaction type, and users will have to explicitly put the document in the correct folders so that XTT knows what is the transaction type of the document. Again, you will find all the correct names for the transactions on the same wiki page here. If you scroll down, so you will find the names that you need to provide for different transaction types. Okay, so let me pause here and let me see if anyone has any questions so far.
This XTT was under inbox only, right?
Yes, correct. So under inbox, you will have a subfolder or directory called as XTT_X12. Yes, for Edifact, you will have XTT_Edifact.
And Alok, for this configuration for X12, we will have only one folder, right? XTT_X12.
Yes. Correct.
Okay. And for other categories, we have so many folders. Okay. All right.
Yeah, you have subfolders which are transaction wise, because XTT does not know how to read the transaction type.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Well, look, even if we have the Edifact format, then also we will put as a XTT_X12, right?
XTT_Edifact.
Edifact then. Okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ali.
Any other
This
questions?
includes PO act invoices, yes.
Any transaction, any transaction, they would, as long as they're following standard X12 format, yes. Were you guys able to create a B2B connections? And also probably able to verify it? Can someone confirm on the chat? Or if you still have a question, just let me know and we can revisit this concept one more time.
Alok, this all was from the owner's perspective only, right?
Yes, we are still at owner's side. We are setting up everything on owner's side first. Then we will drop a transaction and then we'll see what happens.
Alok, I can create the SFTP location at mine for X12.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Any question? Maybe I'm going too fast. So if you guys are stuck at any step, just please let me know so that I can go back and help you out with that. Okay. Same set of transaction rules. What if the assigned rules vice versa? Let's do that. We'll do that. We'll assign different types of rules and we'll see what is happening. Okay. I think then the concept we'll be able to clarify it much better. What happens if you assign different rules than what was required? Okay. Can anyone else confirm if you're able to create the B2B connection?
Yes, Alok, I can. That's it.
Okay. As SC team, can anyone confirm from your side as well? I mean, you can still create B2B connections if you have your XTT AWS application licensed, even if you do not have some other things or issues in other application.
Yeah, my administration is not working. So I mean, for the demo company, I didn't want to do anything on Monroe. So I tried it on my demo company and it wasn't working. So I'll have to try this again. But do share the recording after this meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sure. So let me know if you are able to create the B2B connection, because once you are able to create the B2B connection, that is when, and let me go back to our slide. So that was our part. Then we will be able to first configure the transforms or post-processing transforms. So the most scary topic of post-processing transform. But before we can do that, so there is one concept that I have not included in the presentation itself, because I believe that is a very well-known concept for everyone with TraceLink. That is the concept of canonicals, right? So all the applications operate on canonical. Canonical is a format which is understood by TraceLink application, right? Business application. So any and canonicals are one of the ways which helps us achieving the interoperability, which is you integrate ones, interoperate with others, and so forth. So the system, the business application itself is agnostic of the format of files which are going to be received, right? Any format that we receive, any transaction format that we receive, that format is converted to a TraceLink format or canonical, and then our business application consume that canonical and work on the canonical. So in order to convert a format, inbound format to a canonical, inbound canonical, and also business applications on the outbound side, they provide canonical, which then gets converted into the outbound format. that is achieved through what is called as a map or a transform, right? Now, collection of those maps or collection of those transforms would be called as a transform set. Okay. So for each transaction, we would have a transform which will convert the inbound file format to the canonical format, right? So now, so far, what we have done is we have created a B2B connection. We have created a process network. We have linked a partner. Now, an external system, customer's internal system, or TraceLink, an external system for TraceLink, can put the document into the SFTP folder so that this document will be picked up by the Opus. So let me call it Opus. Let me not go into the individual application. It would be picked up by Opus, but then before it can get processed by the business application such as Mint, the document has to be converted into the canonical, right? Now for the canonical, we will have to create a transform, and there will not be only one transaction type, there will be different transaction types. So we'll create what is called as a transform set, which will have a different transforms for the different transaction types, right? So that is the meaning of transform set that we are going to create. So there are many transforms that are available out of the box from TraceLink side as a standard transforms, right? So these standard transforms are available for X12. These standard transforms are available for Edifact, and these standard transforms are also available for IDOC, which is a SAP format. So for our hands-on purposes, what we were planning to send is we were planning to send a purchase order in X12 format to Mint. So the transform that we need to create would be EDI underscore X12 850 purchase order inbound V4, and there might be different versions. So I'm not sure if the V4 is the latest version, but that's what I got from the documentation. So this is the transform name. Now, to associate the transform set, let me see if I'm still logged in. Okay. To create a transform set first, I will go to administration B2B integration, and I'll navigate to the tab called as transform set. Okay, so this is, now we have started configuring our owner system to receive the inbound transactions inbound and convert that into the canonical. So what we'll do is we'll click on add transform set. We'll provide a name. Again, the name is what the standard we follow is network name / TS for transform set. And if in the same company we have multiple transform set for IDOC, X12, and so on, we also add the choreography. So TS X12. Just to make it clear that this is a transform set for X12 documents, and then there might be other transform set for IDOC documents as well. So we give a name, and then we need to attach the transform file, and then we will click on add. Now, to create the transforms file, you can also click on this sample that is available here. So click on transform set sample CSV. It should give an option to download a sample file. So if I go into this sample file, very good Notepad++ or ONS editor. It's fine. So you'll see the example includes two different applications, APT and MPC. So I'll remove the APT one. For MPC, my message type, now this is tricky. I was not expecting the example to be like this one. Okay, so this could be better. So the message type, like we had discussed, oops, sorry, I'm just switching back and forth to multiple screens. the message type is in the same format, and probably we need to ask admin team to put a good example there. But the message type would be MPC purchase order, right? Direction is inbound. Catalog type would be public. And then the actual transform name. If you're wondering how you would do all this, then don't worry. If you go to the configuration wiki page, you will find a correct transform CSV file there, which you can just download. It will have all the other information. You would only need to edit the transform name and the message type. And of course, the direction, whether it is inbound or outbound. So why it is, so let's talk about this one. So we know application is MPC. For this application, we want a transform set. We know that we are going to send a purchase order inbound, right? So the message type is MPC underscore purchase underscore order, and the direction is inbound. Catalog type public says whether the transform that we are going to use is a standard transform that is available to everyone by default. Again, similar concept we have on TTS. So when there is a map release, those are standard set of transforms available to everyone, routed to everyone. But then there might be some transforms related to a specific company, right? Based on their requirement. So in that case, if the transform is created for a specific company's requirement, the catalog type changes to be private, right? So for our testing or our hands-on demo, we will keep the catalog type as public, and the transform name would be the actual transform name that we are going to use, and transform version is always going to be 1. We're not going to edit it. So, so two places, either we can follow this one, or you can go to the configuration wiki page and download a standard transform file from there. And then add this transform into your CSV file. And then once the CSV file is ready, you can come back here on the B2B integration, transform sets, add transform set, give a name, and attach your transform set file here. System, this is an asynchronous process, so system will take 1 or 2 minutes to show you the transform set, and then they should be added on this screen. Okay. And once the transform sets are added, so if you go back to the TTS world, there is a transform set that is created, but the transactions are sent on a B2B connection. So that B2B connection should be associated with one of the transform sets. So whenever a document is sent inbound on a B2B connection, that document will pass through this transform set. So what will happen is, if a purchase order is dropped on this B2B connection, that purchase order will go to this transform set. It will try to look for application name, which is Mint, transaction name, which is MPC purchase order, direction, which should be inbound, and if there is any transform available for that. So to associate a B2B connection with a transform set, once the transform set is created, you'll click on this kebab icon here, and you will click on configure association and scroll down. Select the B2B connection which was already created from the list of drop-down and click on save. So if you do that, you associate your B2B connection with a transform set. Now, this is a very powerful concept. So what you can do is, in a system, you can have multiple B2B connection created. So imagine a customer which has 2 ERPs, right? So maybe because of some acquisitions or mergers, they have two ERPs, and both of these ERPs have the different type of transaction format. So maybe one ERP uses IDOC, one ERP uses X12 format. So what you'll do is to communicate to these two ERPs, you will create two different B2B connections, one with choreography type other, with one with choreography type X12, right? And then you would create two different transform set. So in one transform set, the application name, message type, direction, catalog would be the same, but the transform name would be for the X12 connection. The transform name would be B2B EDI X12 850 purchase order. For the other B2B connection, you would create one more transform set with the same application, same message type, direction, and catalog type. The transform name would be IDOC. So that is a transform which takes IDOC as an input and converts it into a canonical, right? So you will have two B2B connection. Both of these B2B connection would be associated to different transform sets, and these transform set would have the transforms based on the inbound file format, so that it will convert that to canonical. Any questions on the transform set? And we'll try and discuss the concept itself. Before that, also for you test companies, wherever we are not able to make those test companies work because of post-processing transform, we'll try and correct that as well. But for now, we can follow these steps, what we have completed so far, and then we get into the concept of post-processing transform. I think I'll have to add additional slides for that. And we continue with the owner setup. So in the next session, we revisit what are the setups that we have done so far. How did we create the process network, assign roles to the users, created the master data, created the link, assigned roles to the link, created a B2B connection, and then configured the transform set. Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone before we close out? No? Okay. So I will try and schedule this session probably by this week itself, so that we can at least cover the remaining part. So look out for an invite on maybe Thursday or Friday, depending on when I can make it work. But I'll send out another invite. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will try and send out the feedback link again. So if you can just spend some time to provide a feedback and help us know how to make these sessions better, please do that. And with that, we'll talk later when we have scheduled the other session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.